You're listening to Girls with Grafts, a burn community podcast created by Phoenix Society for Burn Survivors, a leading nonprofit dedicated to supporting the burn community. In this podcast, we'll talk with burn survivors, share resources to help with supporting and improving burn recovery, and discuss how to prevent burn injuries. Here are your hosts, burn survivors and Phoenix Society's marketing team, Amber Wilcox and Rachel Kudlak.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Girls with Grafts. I am Rachel Kudlak. I'm one of the hosts of the show. Today, unfortunately, I will not be joined by my lovely co-host, Amber Wilcox, but that's okay. We have an awesome guest today to talk about some new and exciting topics that we haven't talked about on the podcast yet. So I'm very excited for today's guests. So before I introduce them, let me just quickly thank today's podcast partner. So today's podcast is powered by the Donor Alliance Foundation and the Brookby Foundation. Both of these foundations have played a critical role in supporting Phoenix Society in our programs. Their partnerships help us continue to create spaces for healing, connection, and advocacy, and we couldn't do it without them. So we really thank both of those foundations for their ongoing support of Phoenix Society. So without further ado, today's guest is Emily Hespeler. Emily is a certified therapeutic recreational specialist, burn survivor, speaker, and storyteller based in New York City. Drawing from their personal journey of recovery and resilience after their burn injury, Emily combines professional expertise in recreational therapy with powerful storytelling to inspire others to embrace their inner strength. In their everyday life, Emily finds joy in simple routines like daily walks, spontaneous conversations with strangers, and their weekly jar of peanut butter. So thanks so much for joining us today, Emily.
Yes, thank you for having me, Rachel. I'm really excited.
Yes, I'm very excited too. And I also love peanut butter, so we are already a great match.
Right?
You know, walks and peanut butter, what could be better?
I know, people are like, really, one jar a week? I'm like, yes, like I don't know, I love it. I put it on everything. And I do crunchy and smooth. I feel like that's people's like next question normally. But,
yeah, I'm more of a crunchy gal.
Okay.
And my husband's been on a peanut butter kick lately, so we've been like peanut butter and jellies. So we've been going through so much, and of course our dog loves it whenever we get it out too. So he always has to have some as well.
It's all around win for the family.
Yes. Well, Emily, I know I just read your bio, but I'd love if we could just kind of start off by you telling us a little bit more about your burn injury and your journey as a burn survivor.
Yeah, totally. So I was burned in October 2020, so coming up on just about 5 years, which is kind of crazy. Just feels like time goes so fast, but it still feels like, yeah, a big part of who I am, even though it's just like one part of my identity. My accident occurred when I was cooking in my apartment, and just one of those days where you have like so many things going on. I feel like we all have those days, and like wasn't fully present in my body. So I reached above my gas stove to grab something out of the microwave above, and my flowy shirt caught the flame below and just kind of went into survival mode and thought like water, like I'm going to go put it out. But in my shock, couldn't really get any of the sink or the shower to work. So then luckily my roommate was there and reminded me of simple stop, drop, and roll. And she got the shower on. And by that point I had burns on, over 30% of my body, a large part of them 3rd-degree burns. So spent a little over 2 months in 2 different hospitals in New York City. And then that kind of like whole year afterwards in my physical recovery. And I think just like maybe other survivors can relate to this too, but I think the mental recovery is like an ongoing one. And I feel like this year has been like a big turning point that I feel like, okay, like I'm comfortable and confident in who I am. Not that I haven't been the past few years, but I feel like more okay with the fact that like, yeah, this is my life. This is who I am. Whereas I think the previous years I was like kind of struggling with like, oh, who would that Emily have been if this accident didn't occur? But now I'm just like, well, everyone has those what if moments, and I'm happy with who I am now. So it's okay. Maybe they're like both coexisting in different realities. And I'm just really taking my journey this past year to try to uplift other survivors and bring other survivors together in New York City, as well as share my story as a way to connect with just like anyone in the world and just bring joy and inspiration to them as well.
I love that. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
I'm curious too, kind of about your physical healing, especially during, COVID. I know 2020 and COVID seems like so far ago, but then also feels like it was just yesterday. So how was kind of going through like the pandemic? How did that like impact your physical healing, but then also just that like mental and emotional healing that you were going through as well?
Yeah, good question. I think, I guess starting from being in the hospital, everyone was just wearing masks and it limited like the number of people who could like visit me at a certain time. Luckily, like I could have visitors. I think it was just like one at a time.
Mm,
And I think already burn survivors kind of have to be in a sealed off area because of the heightened risk of infection with those like open wounds. But I guess it was just like that added thing of the masks. And then even like that year after, whenever I would go to physical or occupational therapy, everyone was wearing masks. So I guess, yeah, it's weird thinking about now, but that was just like the normal, not really seeing anyone's faces and connecting in that way. Um, and I don't know. I think I still had a good like support system. Like when I went from New York City after my accident to like a couple months in Massachusetts, where I'm from, to do some more
mm,
intensive physical therapy. And I remember like seeing friends for the first time. They like came outside to my porch and they had like welcome home
mm.
signs, but like we all were wearing masks again and like keeping our distance, especially because they were worried about me and getting me sick or anything like that. So yeah, it was like I was having moments of connection, but it still felt like that distance that I think we can
Mhm.
all remember just because of like we're scared of getting sick and like keeping the 6 feet apart. Um, so I can't say I can't compare it to like now when you
Yeah.
know still risk of COVID, but we can all like see each other more. Like I wonder if that would have allowed me to heal more quickly with like seeing more friends and family with
Mhm.
these.
Yeah, that's why I was curious because I mean, Amber, my co-host, she was injured during COVID, and you know, I should I shouldn't say a lot of the COVID survivors that we are in our community, but some of them have at least like talked about how it was extra isolating. Like a burn injuries already can be so isolating in the
Mm,
healing process, and then when you added, COVID on top of it, where then everyone was isolated, and it just kind
right.
of made sometimes that the physical healing a little bit harder because maybe you weren't in the hospital for as long. Or on the flip side, like that emotional healing, like you said, like you tried to find ways to get that connection, but obviously during the pandemic, it was so much more challenging for anyone, let alone when you're healing from injury.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. It seems
Yeah.
like, yeah, other survivors can relate to that isolation. And I think also I had a job in person, like some days
Mm,
from home, some days in person. So I think that also changed things. Like I was still seeing people. And also, even though it was uncomfortable, maybe for those who did stay at home for longer, like I was kind of like testing myself and getting used to that uncomfortability of like
hmm.
people looking at my scars, people asking questions, or even me feeling embarrassed about. I felt really self conscious more so than about my
Mm,
scars with the compression garments because I had like that thing that like tied around the top of my head and then went behind my neck and like
yeah.
that to me I was like, what the heck am I supposed to wear with this? Like I don't care
Yep.
if people see my scars, but now this is I just look silly now.
Yep.
So yeah,
No, when I was wearing compressions, I was a kid. So at least my parents always tried to make it fun by like, I would mix and match like different colors on different parts of my body and just, whatever. Sometimes the photos I'm like, oh my gosh, I look so funny wearing like all these different colored pressure garments and then like wearing like a sundress or something for like some event. I
yeah,
was like,
yeah.
I look crazy.
No, I literally think I have a photo of that because, like, speaking of like COVID, like there wasn't like much to do. So I remember one time my roommate was like, Emily, like, put on a fashion show for me because I was like, what do I wear in these compression garments? So I had like the long sleeve one, I had like the leggings, the gloves. So I'd go into my closet and I put yeah, like a summer dress on. I put some heels on, and then I like walk out and like strike a pose. I'm like, this is so silly. But yeah, I feel like it honestly like for me, the compression garments did give me this like ability to see myself differently and have fun with
Mhm,
my style in a way that like I never would have thought of before my accident.
mhm. No, I love that. I love that. Well, I know, Emily, you are also a certified therapeutic recreational specialist or recreation specialist, excuse me. So, I know a little bit about it just from some of the work you've been doing with Phoenix Society, but I'm sure a lot of our listeners like don't even know what that is or never heard of that before. So can you just kind of tell us like basic what that means, and especially how could it relate to burn recovery?
Yeah, totally. I'd be happy to because I think a lot of people are like you and like don't really know what it is. And I'm super passionate about the field. So I guess just like a good quick definition is it's the facilitation of research-based leisure experiences to really develop strengths to hopefully lead to improved well-being for people with disabilities, health issues, or just other life circumstances. So I think for me as a burn survivor, I was introduced to the field my last week at the hospital in the
Mm,
inpatient burn unit, or sorry, inpatient physical rehab center. And I met this recreation therapist, Abby. I don't think she'd mind me saying her name. But she like asked me a question. She came into my room and she was like, Emily, like, what do you like doing? And I
mm,
was just like, whoa, like someone is asking me like, what do I enjoy? And like, whereas a lot of other health professionals just, and it makes sense. They're trying to rehabilitate me, get me back on my feet. So with that, they just focus like, what's wrong with you? How can we like fix
mm,
your body? But she was like, what do you enjoy doing? And how can we get you back to doing that? Like outside the hospital, as well as how can we bring some joy into your life here while you're recovering? So she actually took me outside for the first time in 2.5 months because I told her, oh, I really love going on walks and I love being outside. So she took the proper precautions, took me outside, and I just remember like breaking down crying on that walk. And it wasn't
mm,
even about like necessarily being outside. I was just like reflecting on everything that happened to me. And so I think that experience really inspired me to go back to school and study recreation therapist because I want to get to be the one asking people like what matters to you and like how can we get
mm,
back to you doing that. And I think with burn survivors oftentimes at least because I'm a peer supporter with the Phoenix Society too, so on phone calls with people I hear them say like I don't want to like leave my house,
mm,
um, or I'm so worried about the sun that like I don't think I can go outside, um, and just like they're worried about stairs and all this. So recreation therapists can really step in, I think, and help people with that transition. So for instance, if you're worried about going outside, okay, like, well, I'll help you like take the proper precautions, whether it's going out early in the morning or later at night or getting that proper gear to get like, you know, the sun protective shirts and whatnot, sunscreen, all of that, drinking water, staying hydrated to make sure that if we're going outside, like you feel confident in your ability to do that and it's not limited, you're not limiting your life. Or if you're like scared of like just being seen in your scars, again, like taking like baby steps and maybe like going to a cafe and like practicing like just interacting with people and slowly building up to getting back to doing the things you used to enjoy. Or like if you're a burn survivor and you can't move in the same way anymore, if you're in pain, or maybe you have like loss of limbs, adapting activities to meet your needs so that you can
mm,
still enjoy life. As well as just like if it's like in the hospital, like me, I think it served when I had a recreation therapist in the hospital, it served as like a distraction, like a healthy distraction to the pain I was in. Like I would make like a what you call it, like the friendship bracelets. So I
mm,
made a bunch of those, and it was just like a good healthy distraction and a way to just like I don't know work on functionality too. So I think
mm.
it's twofold: recreation therapy, enjoying life, and also building functionality with like the movement, or it can be emotional functionality, spiritual. Uh, yeah,
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Would you say that recreation therapy kind of can help survivors reclaim some like independence that they may lose after a burn injury? Because, we actually talked about this in an earlier episode. It's just like when you think about like losing your identity after a burn injury, everyone goes through something different. Maybe you lost your job because you have a change in mobility, or obviously scars look different, or maybe you lost some of your hair and that can really affect you. But would you say that can kind of help aid in that like independence and kind of earning that back?
yeah. I really appreciate that question. I think totally like if your life has changed with job or family, friends, anything like that after a burn injury, like trying something new for the first time or trying to integrate something that you enjoyed before can show you that like you're still powerful, you're still living.
Mhm.
And I think for me, it really helped me like connect with my body. So like when I got home, I remember being like to my family, it was like that like first week I got out of the hospital, hey, I'm going to go for a walk. So I was like reflecting on like walking with my recreation therapist. I was like, I want to do this. They're like, are you sure? Like, are you sure you can do this? I was like, yeah, like I'm fine. Like I'm good. They're like, okay. And they were like super worried about me going out for a walk, but I just was like, I need to do this. And then the next day, I like went for a run, and that's kind of where that like journey started with running. Cause I was like, oh, I feel like this is helping me process things that I went through. And it's also like helping me connect with myself. And so I think, yeah. And of course, like independence, I was like leaving my family, leaving that safety net of like the hospital, because I was really worried leaving the hospital, about like, I don't know, just like not knowing what to do with myself, not having those people to like take care of me. But I think choosing something for myself, just like wholeheartedly, yeah, like aided in my independence and me just like continuing to live my life following such like a life-changing event.
Yeah, and I know obviously you talked about walking for you, but what are some other like ways, I guess, or I don't know how to describe it, I guess the ways that you can kind of interact with like recreation therapy, if even if it's not walking per se?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be movement. I think for me that's what brings me a lot of joy, but like for instance, like music was also a big part for me. So listening to music to help, again, if you're in pain, or just like that could be something you enjoy doing. It speaking like independence, going to see some like live music or something like that, and seeing how it impacts you at those events, like your mental health and whatnot, and things like art. If you're someone who likes to draw or crafting, there's so many different forms of arts. And I think that's the amazing thing about recreation therapy is like the individual is guiding that experience, not the professional. The professional is just there to help them get to where they want to be. And of course, they can provide some examples, but it's more about like what are the individual's like desires and goals for themselves. Um, and I think some other things, like, well, like sports, of course, but I guess that's more in the movement category. But even just like talking to friends, hanging out with friends, that could be considered recreation therapy. Being in nature, meditation. I think something cool in the hospital, like that I did with veterans, was like virtual reality. And I could see that being used during like, I don't know if it's used in bandage change, but I could see that like being used, like putting on a headset, taking you out into like a serene environment while you're listening to that meditative music. Um, yeah, I could keep going.
No, I love
Yeah,
how like personalized it is because
yeah,
like obviously like I think about like physical therapy. That's a lot of like when you think about therapy as a burn survivor, a lot of us are probably thinking physical therapy, at least initially.
yeah,
And obviously, depending on your burn, your physical therapy is going to look different, but there are different methods on how you can do physical therapy these days. But I'm thinking like back to like when I was newly injured, it was like personalized in a sense, like they were treating just me, but like at the end of the day, you're kind of like you have to do that to be able to like function on a day to day. While this is, I feel like a little bit more, like I said, like kind of helping you, like this is more connected, I feel like, to your emotional and mental healing, and not just like it could help in physical healing, but it may not help in physical healing depending on
yeah.
what you choose.
Totally. Yeah. No, I appreciate you sharing that. And I think a lot of times too, recreation therapists could work with physical therapists too. Like for instance, if a burn survivor like needed to do their stretches but just lacked that motivation, maybe the recreation therapist could step in and be like playing some music and be like, all right, like we're gonna dance right now, like let's stand up or something. And the physical therapist maybe steps in and helps with like those stretches or something.
Yeah, no, that's a great example. It we talked, a lot of times with our burn care professionals on here too about how it really is a team effort. It's not just the recreational therapist, it's not just the PT, it's not just the OT, it's not just the doctor, and how the best care teams really are all working together. That's definitely the best approach.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Very holistic.
Yes. Well, I do want to switch gears a little bit. I know you had just recently, I think spent 3 weeks at the Fringe Festival in Scotland sharing your story. So, can you just tell us more about that festival and just that experience for you?
Yeah, totally. So the Fringe Festival is basically like a long running festival of all sorts of performers, whether it's like comedy, cabaret, theater, circus. And there's fringe festivals throughout the world, but one of the biggest one is in Edinburgh in Scotland. So the past 6 months, before August when the festival was, I was just putting a lot of effort into going to different storytelling events, crafting a story about my life before, during, and after my accident. And I had my own show at the Fringe Festival. Every day I was performing for like 18 days. Um,
Wow.
and anyone could, yeah, like part of the festival is like just like flyering people and trying to get them to come to your show. So I kind of was trying to develop some like sales tactic because there's literally thousands of shows to choose from, and like I'm like kind of like no one knows about me because I didn't like
Mm,
hire a publicist or something like that. And there's like actually like bigger names there. So that was part of it, like really being confident. And it was actually weird because it tied back to the burn survivor thing. Like this comedian was like, "Oh, you got to have like a pitch to tell people as they're walking by." He's like, "Oh, you should ask them, hey, like, come take a guess what happened to me," which is like something
mm,
I would like not do on a regular
yep.
basis. Like, I would not be calling attention, or I was like, "Oh, have you seen my scars?" And like, I would quickly not make it about that. I'd be like, "Oh, hey," like, and just start talking and having a conversation. But it's really interesting, like, bringing attention in my story and in those moments to my scars, where normally I'm just like, okay, I'm just living my life and people stare and whatever. But the festival itself and performing just gave me a lot of confidence. And it makes me want to keep going and sharing my story because I think before that I was like, oh, is anyone going to listen to a 40-minute storytelling session? And yes, they will. Like people of all ages,
Hmm.
like from all around the world, just like really gave me some good feedback. And I think people like when others are vulnerable and that creates connection, and they just felt inspired and connected to my story in different ways based on their own lived experiences. And it felt cool representing other burn survivors. And because I don't just talk about being a burn survivor, talk about lots of different parts of my identity. So just giving people the opportunity to see, yeah, I have scars. Yeah, I'm a burn survivor, but that's only one part of me.
Hmm.
So I think that was pretty cool.
No, that's amazing. That's awesome. I am not the best public speaker, and I am just thinking about like having people around me and having to like convince them to also come listen to me and then having to actually talk in front of them would,
Yeah.
well, I don't think I would be the best at that.
Is it definitely takes time, takes time.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that like I noticed because I would get in my head up there too. I'd be like, oh, like are people enjoying this? Like, oh my gosh. Um, but like people are generally rooting for anyone on stage.
Yeah.
Like I think they want you to succeed. And even if they don't align with everything, that's okay. It's not a rejection of me or
Hmm.
you public speaking. It's just like there's some, they can't relate, and that's okay. And they're still going to clap at the end regardless.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, definitely. Well, how have you kind of shifted, or is there anything that that's helped you with the mindset of, I loved what you just said earlier of like being a brain survivor is just one part of my story. And I feel the same way, being so much further out from my injury, but I know obviously a lot of our listeners are maybe earlier on, maybe around that 5 year mark like you, or even earlier than that. So like how did you get to that mindset of like accepting your burn injury and then also just like acknowledging that it's only like one part of who you are?
Yeah. No, that's a good question. I don't know if I'm fully there yet on like a whole answer, but what comes
Mhm.
to mind is like kind of going back to that recreation and leisure, and like
Mm,
reminding myself of all the stuff like I used to love to do before my accident and some new things I can start doing. Um, and I think just like not like, yeah, people can see my scars, but I think at first when my accident happened, I was like really keen on like telling people like
mm,
that I'm a burn survivor. Oh, I was just in the hospital. This happened to me. Like I didn't want to, but I thought they were gonna ask. And so it's kind of like almost this like anxious feeling in my stomach, like,
yeah.
like I'm just gonna tell them, blurt it out at weird times. I think just through like,
I'm just imagining, I'm just
yeah.
imagining like a random conversation. You just like blurt it out in the middle of a
Yeah.
sentence.
I was like, oh, by the way, I think it was like also like a reasoning for my compression garments, like at least that first year after.
Yeah, that
Um,
makes sense.
but I think it just really is about like continuing to live my life. Like if I had just like stayed, like obviously gave myself time to grieve. There are moments through the running and through my stretching that I would just like break down crying. So like yes, feel my emotions and just keep on doing things, keep on living my life,
Yep.
keep on meeting up with friends, keep on working. And eventually just like there's just like came this connection and confidence in myself. Um, y'all might have heard it, or I asked myself a lot, like that first year after, I'd look at myself in the mirror and I'd be like, who's a baddie? And I'd repeat back like, I'm a baddie. And like to me, like that word just like I knew like Black women in the US used it as this like term of confidence, but for me it just became like, okay, like I can be anything. And in that sense, like that's one, like, okay, I say the thing, but I actually have to start doing it. So like when I said that, I'd walk out the door, my head held high, even if I wasn't feeling confident. But then eventually I really started to feel that. And like I think people just notice the confidence. And I think with that, like they see, yes, of course, they still see my scars, but they're not like, people aren't dying to know, like they don't have, like it's in my control when I tell them.
Yeah.
And so I think I like said a lot of different things that may have not completely related to your question.
No, I love
Yeah.
it. And it really just shows, just the journey, especially for burn survivors. Like it's not linear, it's up and down. It's
Yeah.
what may work for you may not work for me. And everyone has to kind of find, their own way of healing. Like listening to you say like I'm a baddie, like I think about like I've gone better at it, but I really used to try to do like the daily affirmations. But
Yeah.
then I was just like saying them to say them so I could tell myself like, oh, I did this. I read my affirmations today, so check, like I'm done. It was just like more of like a to-do and less of like actually like feeling them and like trying to embrace what I'm actually telling myself instead of just saying like, oh, this is what I should be telling myself. So if I tell myself this enough, I'll believe it, which I think there is some truth to that. But then there's a difference of like embracing what you're telling yourself too.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. It sounds like for you, like the mantra or the affirmation wasn't the right one. And perhaps if you had the right one, like it could have like changed your brain in a way that made you feel good about yourself. And yeah, if anyone has any other like affirmations, I think my baddie one, I still like it, but I think I need something new. Yeah.
Yeah, no, maybe we can encourage folks to drop some if they're watching this in the comments of some
Yeah,
positive
exactly.
affirmations. Well, I know we kind of started touching on like the confidence, especially after a burn injury. I know that's something I've struggled with, can still struggle with today, and so many survivors do. Aside from kind of like those affirmations, were there anything else that kind of helped you start to regain that confidence in your own skin?
Yeah, totally. And like I think for me, my scars were never something like I felt like were like ugly. Like I feel like there's been like none, if only like a few times where I've been like, oh, this looks like it's never been like a gross thing. It's always just like this is interesting. Like this is interesting that this is on my body. And I think coming at it from that perspective of like love and like I'm just like curious about this new vessel I'm in. And like I would look at I spent like a lot of time like by myself too. Like I think there were some good things that came from that, of looking at myself in the mirror every day and like really like putting on lotion on my body, like staring at my body in a way that I never did before my accident, and really connecting with myself and just being like, oh, this is like a new part of me. And I think that took time to like feel connected to myself, but I think actually like that helped a little. um I think other things in terms of confidence, I was hitting on this with like the compression garments, but like a lot giving myself that freedom and that fun to like express myself with clothes that felt good to
Yeah.
me. And so that was like pretty cool. And what else? Yeah, I think surrounding myself with friends and family who had known me
Yep.
before my accident, and who I didn't, yeah, they would check up on me and ask like, hey, how are you doing? And I could really like, give a good cry if I needed to.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, we could just die laughing, and I could feel like that Emily before my accident. So I think surrounding myself with people from before my accident really helped. And then getting used to, yeah, talking to new people. And like I said before, like I would ride the subway to work, and I was like, oh, like everyone's looking at me, like kind of like that middle schooler, like everyone's looking at me, everyone's staring. And I just kind of got, I don't know, it just takes time, but I think I was like,
Yep.
no, everyone isn't. Everyone's literally in their own head, especially in New York City. People see like
Yes.
so many
Yep.
different things, and if people do stare, like I have the mechanisms to like, or like I don't know, like I can give a smile, or I can just look away and not pay attention to it. Or if someone asks me a question, um, I don't have to tell them what happened, but I can. And some days it gets me still when people catch me off guard, because I'm just kind of like living
Mm-hmm.
my life, like being like, oh, I'm Emily. And then someone like reminds me, oh, like not everyone sees me just as me. But it goes, I have to remind myself, I probably do that for other people too, that I haven't seen someone who looks a certain way or something like that. I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I think I've talked a little bit about this on the show before, but because I was burned when I was 3 years old. So I didn't know a me before. I've only really have ever known myself like as a burn survivor. But then I'll go through these phases in life, like as, a child and going to elementary school, like meeting, and kids are just curious. Like no one was mean at that time, at least. They've never seen a burn survivor before. We're like 5 years old. And then going to middle school, it was like, again, when all the elementary schools had finally came together, it was like, oh, yeah, I am a burn survivor. Like, not that I forgot about it, but like, once all the people around me were used to it, I like didn't think about it anymore. And then it was like
Yeah.
going to college, and now again in my adult life, it's just like, yeah, it's funny how like I'm confident as a burn survivor, but then it'll like, yeah, it's almost like someone like burst your bubble sometimes, and you're like, I kind of forgot about it because
Yeah.
I don't know, like I just kind of forgot, like, oh yeah, I do have scars all over my body, and I guess like, yeah, this person may have never seen a burn survivor before, and now they're curious.
Right. Right. No, that's a good way of
Yeah.
putting it. I like that. Yeah, burst the bubble, and like, yeah, I see what you're saying, like different phases of life having to go through that again. And I think
Mhm.
sometimes I do get in my head a little bit. All right, like I'm maybe meeting this new group of people for the first time.
Mhm.
Um, and where maybe no one that knew me before my accident is, but now I've built up so many friends from after my accident that I guess maybe it's okay. Like they know there was a Emily before, but I'm still the same Emily. Like I'm still the same Emily. It's
Yep.
just like new perspective on life. And I can imagine for people who are burned as a kid, yeah, it's just it's a little different, but still that
Mhm.
reintegration into different phases of life can feel similar things.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, I know you've been listening to a few of our episodes, but one thing we've been trying to do that's new this season is we do a quick lightning round of a myth or truth. So I'll read a statement, and then you can either say if it's a myth or it's truth, and then just a sentence or two or whatever about, why that's the case. So I'll start with the first one. It's recreation therapy is a one size fits all with all the same activities for everyone.
Yes, that is a myth, because, yeah, like we were talking about, it's very individualized based on like the person first mentality. So whatever you want, whatever your goals are, whatever your interests are, will help you bring you there.
Yep, yep. The next one is recreation therapy can support both physical healing and emotional recovery.
100%. That is true. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I know we kind of touched on those two already. Our third statement is talking about your trauma makes it worse.
I think that is, I'm going to say myth, and also some things that I remember, um, like just like weird research going behind. I didn't say one or two sentences, but just like sometimes talking about the accident itself. I think sometimes you should wait, or maybe it could be good to wait a little bit of time, depending on the individual. But yeah, talking about what you went through, I think if you're in a safe space to do so with people who can really listen, can be very beneficial to healing.
Definitely. Sharing your story can help you connect with yourself and others in powerful ways.
Yes, true.
Yep. And then our last statement is feeling confident in your own skin happens overnight.
That is a myth.
Yes,
You can
definitely.
try a thing once a night, but yeah, it's gonna take some time. It's gonna go up and down. So just embrace it and know that everyone's out there just trying to live their life, and they don't always feel confident either.
Definitely. Well, I do want to ask a little bit too about. I know you started some meetup groups for burn survivors in New York City. So I'm just kind of curious to know a little bit more about, what inspired you to start those meetup groups, and if you could tell a little bit more about, how folks can stay connected and get involved.
Yeah, totally. So I was burned at 23 years old, and I think, yeah, my mom knew about the Phoenix Society. She got me involved in the virtual support groups, and then through the hospital I was at, I knew they had an online support group, but because of COVID, everything was only online. So I had never really, until World Burn Conference 3 years after my accident, met with any other burn survivors in person. And yeah, I noticed as after I became a recreation therapist, I was like, oh, like, what do I want to do with this? And I thought back to why I became the woman who was my recreation therapist and how I want to help other burn survivors. And I didn't see in my research and meeting up with people a lot of resources for adult burn survivors. I saw that there was like camps for little kids, and there was like support groups, but there wasn't a lot of like activities to do. So I was like, okay, I think New York City especially needs something like this because I was seeing a lot of resources on the West Coast, but not so much on the East Coast. So I did a lot of like phone calls and meetings with people who have done similar like meetups groups and how they started that. I eventually just needed to like, all right, I'm doing this. People are going to show up, and it will keep having like a domino effect. And that's kind of where I'm at now. I started the first one in May of this year, and I've tried to have them once a month. And it's just basically a way for, again, like burn survivors 18 and older just to get together, and going back to like those feelings of burn survivor, feeling isolated, hopefully feel a little less isolated, feel confident going out in the world. And yes, they can talk about what happened to them, but it's more just a way to, make friends, make connections, and of course know that these people have had similar experiences. So if things come up about being a burn survivor, you can share, you can relate in that. So I'm really excited, and I think I can just sense that more people are learning about it as I hop on more support groups, calls, and tell people about it. And we've got a walk coming up in October in Central Park. So trying to keep the activities free and accessible. And yeah, if you want to find out more, you could go to my website, emilyhespeler.com. And under my About section, there's like a form to sign up for that. Or you can always shoot me an email from my website to ask any questions. Because yeah, I think creating connections is a powerful thing that can hopefully get people out of their head, feel confident about themselves, and get back to moving a little bit.
Definitely. Yeah, and we will have Emily's website linked in our show notes. So if you're watching us, check that out below. And if you're listening to us, that'll be in the show description. So we'll make sure, folks who are listening, who want to get connected with you can. I think sometimes for some survivors, that even the idea of like, sometimes survivors have never even met another burn survivor. And so it could be scary thinking of like, oh, there's this meetup group in New York City. I'm local. I want to go, but I'm scared. Like it seems really scary to go do that. So what advice or I guess like tips would you give to someone who's maybe, just hesitant about, maybe like even opening up and like accepting the burn survivor community and getting connected?
Yeah, I totally hear you. For those of you out there, I was there at one point, so you can go from feeling like that to less than 5 years later, like feeling like you want to start your own meetup group, maybe. But yeah, I remember like the first couple months after my accident, I opened up like a Phoenix group support call, and I was like, oh, like I didn't even show my face. I closed the computer right away because I was like, this is too soon to be hearing about people's emotions. I was like, I don't want to talk about this. I think that shifted for me because I don't know. I just realized that I could listen. I didn't have to share. And I think for anyone who's, you know, maybe interested in coming to my meetup group or another one, know that you don't have to share anything. Like, we're not going to ask you like what happened to you. We're not going to ask you to say anything that you don't want to say. It's all about what you feel comfortable with sharing and just connecting with others and knowing that we're there to support you if needed. And also, if it would make it more comfortable, head on into a burn survivor with a loved one or a friend, someone that you already feel comfortable with, and know that like I did, I closed that computer. You can leave at any time. No one's forcing you to find that. But I think baby steps help, right? Like maybe one day you attend a support group for 20 minutes, the next month, an hour, maybe the 2 months from then you go in person, and just seeing how you feel. But again, just knowing it's a safe spot. No one's going to pressure you to share anything.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think what you just said too, of like bring a loved one, whether it's going to one of your community meetups or, joining our virtual support group, a loved one, a caregiver, a friend, a neighbor, someone that you trust. That's a great way to, feel supported. And like you said, no one's going to ask, and no one's going to make you, whether it's, again, a community meetup or a support group or whatever it may be, you don't owe anyone to share anything. So you don't have to if you don't want to.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I know we are coming up on our time, but I did want to ask, I know in your bio, I read about loving peanut butter and just, talking about how you find joy in those like simple things of like walks and connecting with others. So, how do those, I guess, simple routines like help with your healing and your resilience?
Yeah. Thank you for that question. Bringing back full circle to the peanut butter. I think for me, having a routine after my accident kind of goes back to that idea of just like living your life. And so I remember I would get up before anyone in my house to do my physical therapy, occupational therapy stretches. I would put on some music, had some Eminem in my ears in case anyone is wondering. And I would stretch and I would like cry. I feel like a lot of these times when I was stretching, just like not really understanding everything, but just knowing I was processing something. And then I think, even though that's not where I am now, I'm not in like that heightened, like aroused emotional state. I think these simple routines are just so much more special after my burn accident. And I have to remind myself of that, but I think it's like, oh, okay, well, I spent X amount of time not being able to really walk or move, not having my daily dose of peanut butter. Mm-hmm. And now that I can, I think I really try to like savor what could be seen as mundane.
Yep.
Just savor going outside, feeling the sun, looking at the clouds. I know it sounds cheesy, but those moments are beautiful and can be taken away in any second. And so, yes, having a routine, I guess it's a little bit different, but like just embracing those simple joys is important to me because I don't know when it's going to get taken away. And I think I also am someone with the routine who embraces spontaneity because of the same reason. If someone asks me to do something, I'm kind of like a yes and okay, let's figure out the plan, or like when this can happen, because I feel like, I want to just try to experience as many things as I can in life and learn as much as I can from people and challenge myself. Like my first podcast I'm doing because I don't know when the moment's gonna pass, and not to think that I'm still in that mentality of like, oh, I'm gonna know something else is gonna happen tomorrow. But truly, I think that's just one of the biggest things that stayed with me from my accident.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's great advice for everyone, whether they're a burn survivor or not. But I think everyone can, use that reminder of like enjoy the moment that you're living in. And, I'm kind of the same way. Like I love a routine and like I'll go into the gym every morning and then there will be mornings where I'm like exhausted and I don't feel like going. But
Yeah.
then I just remind myself like, but I have the opportunity to go. Like
Mhm.
I'm like, I don't know. There's like a phrase I used to say, but I can't, it's not coming to me right now. I guess I haven't said it in a while. But it's just like, yeah, like reminding yourself like you should be like grateful for this moment because you do have the opportunity to go do whatever you're going to do, whether it's a walk, it's the gym, or listening to our podcast even.
For sure.
Yeah.
My brother gave me this for my birthday this year. It's like Viva la Vida, and it's like from Frida
Mm,
Kahlo. And I think she just had a similar mentality of like working through her pain through art.
yeah.
And yeah, Viva la Vida, live the life.
I love it. Love it. Well, Emily, I do have two final questions to ask you, but I just wanted to kind of open it up and see if you had anything else you wanted to share with our listeners before we ask you the final two questions.
I think, yeah, maybe you'll ask this already. I would love to share more about like the storytelling and encouraging others to do that as well.
Yeah, well, why don't we, before I ask you the final two, why don't you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, I think, yeah, I know we were talking a little bit about storytelling, and I didn't share my story as a burn survivor for, a long time. I was just
Mm,
like, oh, like, I don't like, I went through that phase of telling everyone to being like, oh, I don't really want to talk about it. This isn't necessarily who I am, to
mm-hmm.
then going to the World Burn Conference, in, I think Maryland, outside of DC,
Yep.
and seeing other survivors get on that like open mic that y'all have, and share their
Mm-hmm.
story. I was too timid. I wrote my name on the list, but it was after a lot of people had gone, so there wasn't time for me to share mine. But like, I was like, all right, I'm going to share my story, and I had that mentality in my head, and I just continued to visualize myself doing that, being on a stage. I didn't know what it looked like, and then I found out about storytelling, and I shared my first story, and I felt connected to myself, and I feel like the audience felt good about themselves. And I just, you don't have to get in front of a stage, but I think sharing your story can be super empowering, and also connect you to so many people. And yeah, I don't know, it doesn't have like me sharing my story hopefully like shines the light for others to do the same, just like people at that World Burn Conference, did for me. And
Mm-hmm.
again, you don't have to talk necessarily about what happened to you. Like my first couple of stories, I didn't say the details, um, but it's just a chance for people to realize that like we're more alike than different. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, hopefully for me, like I share what happened to me now because I don't want the same thing to happen to others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm sure too, just, sharing your story over time has changed. And I see that a lot, just obviously in the job I have. But, early on, maybe, when you're talking about your burn survivor journey, and I know I did this, like you talk a lot about the accident itself and like the details of like what happened. And then, I've, at least for me personally, like later on, like, well, that's actually not really what's even important about my story. It's like what I've done after and how I've grown after. It's not so much about
Yeah.
like where or when it happened. Like those details really don't matter to my story anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. And I think for me, it was like the opposite for some reason. Like when I
Yeah.
started storytelling, I was like, oh, I'm only want to focus on like who I've become because of my accident. And then I
Mm-hmm.
realized like, okay, like maybe it is important in some ways just to give some more context. And because, uh, yeah, it almost allows me to take control of my narrative. And now when
Yeah.
people do catch me off guard, I feel more confident, saying what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it just goes to show like everyone has a different healing journey. No one's is the same. But that is part of the reason why we want to share our stories, because you will find someone who you can connect with, who you can, understand what they're going through. They can understand what you're going through. Maybe it's a similar age that the injury happened, or similar injury, or similar like where you are in today's life. Like it can be a lot of different things. So, I think it just kind of goes back to, why it's so important to share and open up and connect with others when you're ready.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, like I said, we do ask all of our guests 2 final questions. Amber's question is, what gives you hope when things feel heavy?
Oh man, yeah, that is a good one. A
Mm.
good final question to end on. I think what gives me hope and what I felt in like a super powerful way after my accident was the love that I have from family and friends.
Mm.
And I guess to tie it into hope of like keeping on going, like just knowing that I didn't have to do anything with my life to receive that love. Like I found a picture recently of my older brother and older sister holding me as a baby, like right when I was born. I literally was probably like crying or something like that. Like I didn't, but yet they were still giving me that love. And so as I'm like thinking of all these other things that I want to do with my life, yes, that's great. And also I can slow down and remind myself that like I'm loved in those moments of pain, regardless of what I've done, regardless of what's happened. I'm always going to have that love. And also, I'm a big nature person. So I think seeing that like nature survives and I can go outside and, again, like I was saying, look at the sun, look at a tree, go for a walk in the woods or a park. I'm just reminded like nature keeps going regardless of what happened. I see a tree cut, like chopped down, maybe it some grow, there's life underneath that starts growing, like like there's branches that come off in different ways when you wouldn't expect it. So that's just a reminder to me, like even if I have a painful moment, even if I have something that could be seen as a setback, yes, it is painful, feel that pain, but also that is giving me another opportunity to grow and experience life in a new way, because I wouldn't be talking to you if my burn accident didn't happen, and I wouldn't be doing storytelling, I wouldn't be a recreation therapist. So yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, now it is time for our final question, which is our Phoenix Partner question today, sponsored by the Donor Alliance Foundation and the Brookby Foundation. So their question is, what do you hope someone listening to your story today feels or learns?
I hope they feel a little sense of like, if they're a burn survivor, like a sense of peace, like, okay, maybe my life isn't going to be as daunting as I thought. Maybe this is something hard that I'm going to get through or I'm going to live with in a way that allows me to also feel joy. And for anyone else who isn't a burn survivor, I hope that you start to look at people just as people. And I know I was talking a lot about being a burn survivor, but I think, again, it's just one part of me. And again, just also feel inspired. Like if I could get through this accident and be doing all these things, obviously I'm very privileged, with family and being able to pay for like medical expenses and all of those things. But like, if I could get through that still with, I think, a good portion of my own like willpower, you can get through anything that's going on in your life, and community can help you do that. And if you don't have that, there's resources here to help you to thrive.
Definitely. Well, Emily, thank you so much for coming on our podcast today. I loved having you as the guest. I love learning more about your journey. And I think it was an amazing conversation. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rachel. This was like super awesome for me to get to talk through things. I found myself smiling, tearing up at different times. And yeah, hope I get to talk to you soon. Are you going to be at the World Burn Conference?
Yes, I am. Are you going?
Yes, I am. So I'll see you there.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I know. I can't believe it's like coming up real quick. We still have a lot to get done, but we'll make it.
I believe in you guys.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, I can't wait to see you in person. I can't wait to see so many of our community members in person. So be sure to say hi to me and Emily if you are coming to Phoenix World Burn Congress.
Thank you.
Awesome.
All right.
Well, thank you, Emily.
You're welcome.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Girls with Grafts. If you are enjoying this content, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. This helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.